Hello, everybody. Welcome again after the break. Well, the topic of this panel, we were actually discussing it for many editions. We always wanted to have a panel about that, but unfortunately our network wasn't wide enough until one day when our paths crossed with Ola Miedzynska. She's the CEO and founder of Tech.eu, which is the only conference that connects deep tech and Internet of Sex things. And she managed to bring a lot of great speakers. I would like to introduce three of them. It's Dominnique Karetsos, she's the CEO and founder of the Healthy Pleasure Group. Georgia Mattos, CEO and founder of iPlaySafe app. And Heather Montgomery, founder and CEO of pleaseme.com. Enjoy the panel.
Hello, welcome everyone. Yes, we're starting. Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Ola Miedzynska and I'm CEO and the founder of SexTech.eu, which is the only one global conference dedicated to innovation and technology for the sex tech industry. And today with my excellent, fabulous guests representing also sex tech industry sector, I will try to nail the topic why the sex technology is the next $1 trillion industry. And before I will jump into this deep dive and before I will introduce my guest, very shortly, I would like to say thank you, Wolf Summit, for having us here. It's a very great pleasure to be with you today. I'm watching you since the very early beginning, and I have to say it is really mind-blowing to stand above the mediocrity and cultivating the open-mindedness dialogue in the world of the technology. So please welcome to the guests, Dominnique Karetsos, CEO and founder of the Healthy Pleasure Group. It's with us today. Hi, Dominnique.
Hi, Ola. Nice to see you. Thank you for having us here today.
Georgia Mattos, CEO and founder of iPlaySafe app. Welcome, Georgia.
Hi. Thank you. Hi.
Hello, and Heather Montgomery, CEO and the founder of pleaseme.com. Hello,
Hi,
Heather.
Ola. Hi, Ola.
Lovely. So I would like to start from a very brief understanding of the history of the sex tech industry, since sexual health encompasses all the companies serving the people's sexual needs, starting from pharma solutions, mental health, medicals, media, and all of these companies generates the products and services designed for a human pleasure in its own terrain and its own sake, not as just a side effect of the reproductive health. So first of all, Dominnique, this is the question to you. I would like to ask you, where did this $1 billion industry emerge from, and why now we're seeing such a trajectory of growth?
Mm-hmm. Well, you've touched on a few things, Ola. I think let's just give it a bit of human perspective, right? So today, I'm not sure how many people are listening, but there are as many sexualities as there are humans. And those words come from a brilliant scientist called Emily Nagoski. And I think it's really important to also just reiterate right from the beginning, we didn't just appear out of anywhere. But we have been, it's no secret that the topic around sex and sexual health is shrouded, right, in taboos. And for centuries, that conversation has been hidden a lot of the time. When you look at it from a market perspective, it always previously has been very polarized. From the consumer or the human perspective, it's we learn about family planning, as you touched on, versus porn. So nothing about pleasure somewhere in between there. And I think what's important to realize is pleasure is the star of the show. It's the most innate human experience we can have, but we learn so little about the value of pleasure. And when I say value, I mean the health benefits, whether it's physical, whether it's biological, whether it's mentally. So we've spent a lot of time in the centuries just diluting what pleasure means. So, in the 1920s, it wasn't called a vibrator, it was called a massager, and then only really at the turn of the century did you see movements like the Me Too movement. Millennials or women started to demand more around our reproductive health. We wanted more control over our anatomy, and that meant control over the right to our own pleasure. And so, in the marketplace, we would, because of our polarized industry, we would buy a product down a dark alley in a brown paper bag called a vibrator. And really, it's only since probably the last 10, 15 years that we start to see technology facilitate itself into the world of pleasure. And it's making products not only aesthetically beautiful, so for example, a vibrator, now no longer in a brown paper bag, but instead in Lafayette and Selfridges, as well as technology being able to facilitate that means it becomes accessible, right, to everybody. And now what you're seeing at this beginning of the century is that women are taking control of this space, because we are now coming up with products and solutions that cover historically where categorically we've been ignored, whether it's around reproductive, whether around it's pleasure, whether around it's just preventable healthcare, which you'll learn more today, or just changing massive amounts of change in social change and behavioral change, which you'll also learn more today from the founders that are joining us. So it really, it's important to know we didn't just spring out of anywhere. We all got here the same way, but the industry has radically changed and morphed, and it's not slowing down.
Great, amazing. I mean, this is really important to mention that the pleasure terrain was always, and very sadly, only in the 90s we started to treat it, maybe also from the understanding of a medical perspective. We were in the moon in 68, but unfortunately we didn't get that far with the human pleasure before. So this is the time, but also it's a time that speaks of numbers in this big industry. So I would like to navigate a little bit into investor side, because perhaps they don't need to understand precisely the history of a human pleasure, but they need to know the numbers. And without any mistakes, the market is there. And so only in 2019, the market for only sex toy segment valued was by $25 billion globally. And if we put on the top of that another angles of the industry, the lubricants, erotica, apps, platform, it doubles to 50 billion. Some experts today estimate the market grow high as the 122 billion by 2026. So we're talking here about very simple, serious numbers. And the header, this is the question to you. I would like to navigate a little bit about the landscape of a total industry and what angle is most worthy of investment, in your opinion?
Yeah, so thank you, Ola. I think that most people can understand and agree that 80% of the buying power in the world is held in the hands of women, right? And especially when it comes to health and wellness. So if we look at the sexual wellness market and the women's health technology market, actually the current number to date in those two segments is 87 billion, and that's in 2020. And we always want luck and success, right? And they say that's when preparedness meets opportunity. Well, the growth projected between this year and the end of next year goes from 87 billion to 161 billion, almost doubles, right? With a 13% CAGR, which, I mean, there's really not that many industries out there that can boast that. And I think where investors have an opportunity in this space is that because a lot of women, as Dominnique mentioned, are leading this space and innovating new products, and a lot of the products are geared toward women making the purchasing decision, if you will, you have a segment that's really grossly underfunded and discounted when it comes to its valuations. So if you were to look at where you're going to invest your money and how much return on investment or bang for your buck you're going to get, you want to buy low and sell high. And there's no better opportunity, timing, and market than sex tech, sexual wellness, and women's sexual health.
Thank you so much, Heather. That really speaks a lot. And it always comes, at least from my experience working in the industry, that the sexual context of our industry is deemed as immoral sometimes, that it's making sometimes hard to explain the innovation to investors and to sometimes different entrepreneurs as well. And we all know that another sexual revolution is on the horizon, and we all know that it's more inclusive and more diverse than ever was. That is also clearly demanded by the millennial generation. Let's be honest about that. And my question to all of you is: how do we dismantle this taboo and unshake a little bit the stigma when, in fact, sexuality discriminates against no one?
Yeah.
That's such a great question. If you don't mind me, I'm gonna kick this off, just because we notice a lot with the agency, with the amount of brands that we bring to the marketplace. Two of the most important things to be able to normalize this conversation that sexuality is something to be explored lies in the responsibility of the brand, right? Because the brand, when it responds to consumer-driven needs, it has control to reshape that lexicon that then consensualizes that pleasure is healthy and also it's sexual health, right? So sexy healthcare, and so you have that opportunity to do that as an innovator, which you will see on any of the brands that are including SexTech.eu here today. You've gone and reshaped and redefined. And to do that and to make it accessible, you have inserted technology. So I think it's fair to say we're never going to be able to talk about sexual health or sexuality or pleasure without mentioning technology, whether it's an app, an AI, an experience, whatever it might be. Technology is the solar plexus. It becomes the facilitator to create an omni-channel approach to allow for accessibility, and only through that, where innovation then goes beyond just the lab or the manufacturing place, you then begin to normalize that conversation. So you're continuing to dismantle those taboos and no longer discriminate, right?
Do you have perhaps any of the example from your agency that you could support this change of the narration?
Of course. I mean, you're sitting here with two incredible founders themselves. You've got me, which is the only safe space, cyber speaking and legally, where you can explore and discover sexuality in a healthy environment. You've got iPlaySafe, which is a preventable healthcare, which is a brand that is usually considered a patient proposition. It's for STI testing, that is now becoming a private proposition. So you're responding to the consumer and you're providing an experience of support, availability. It's the sharing. And in both situations, you've got a brand that becomes the sharing revolution, right? And you're holding safe spaces for people to be able to take care of their healthcare with preventable healthcare, to explore pleasure and sexuality in a normalized, healthy, legally safe space to do it. We've never had that before.
Excellent. And this is exactly a very important point when we are getting to private proposition from the sharing revolution. And this is exactly what the Georgia product is about. Yet, all the products, right, all the intimate data products are also often speak from the super important topic, which is cybersecurity, and it's a security of the vulnerabilities of such a product. So in the SexTech, we have plenty of the devices connected to apps and connected to collect data, and SexTech products which are monitoring orgasm, which are safe vibration patterns and connected partners and long distance partner pleasure gadget situations. So most of them are connected to Bluetooth. Of course, like in every other digital product, the vulnerabilities are possible. And Georgia, I would like to ask you the question exactly covering the topic of the intimate data protection. How do you navigate with the best practice, with the security sense of the intimate data? And what is the concept? Do you believe that the concept that some of the sex tech companies say to not collect any data is even possible in 2020?
Hi, thank you, Paula. I guess, first of all, this concept that some tech companies don't really collect data in 2020 is really hard to believe. It's certainly not a justification for not applying the best practices in terms of data security. Like, no matter what product you involve into, like, there always going to be some sort of data collection. And as Dominnique just said, we are talking about this new generation, the sharing generation. Sharing is one of the most important trends nowadays. And how to share with security, especially when we're talking about intimate data. And I guess what the investors should know is that the sex tech industry is prepared for that. Regulated or not, the industry are applying all the necessary controls and technology to keep intimate data secured. Like, we are taking all the necessary measures, like calling for contractors, having a clear understanding of everybody's roles and responsibilities, and having someone within the company that really understands data security and the new technological solutions available. Like in iPlaySafe case, for example, we are a medical device, so we have to deal with MDR regulations that we, of course, welcome with open arms, because we're dealing with intimate data, extremely sensitive, and should be dealt and managed in a very regulated environment. And I guess on the top of this, the public are increasingly demanding clarity on where is their data and who are who are storing their data and how is it stored. So it's now become our responsibility to make all this information not only secure but transparent. So I guess like the keyword for the next few years when you talk about data security would be transparency.
Yeah, it's for sure top of the mind of a sex tech company to secure the transfers of intimate data these days. And I would like to go to the topic that I believe that every single event is putting on their panels right now agenda. We cannot forget that a few months ago, world turned into the Black Mirror scenario. Mm. And that also changes the industries, and that also influence, in particular, our industry. So since the pandemic time, couples from all over the world in social distance answered more likely to a sex product market. And we know that for a fact. We witnessed over 65% rise in sales in the post-lockdown phase, in the lockdown phase. So essentially, stay at home, stay safe, turned into stay more sexual globally. And we as SexTech.eu, we conducted a lot of surveys inside the startup scene of sex tech industry. We were wondering what's going on inside their business, and from the side of apps and platforms, ending on the e-commerce retail business, everyone shifted their sales. That only proved that sex tech industry, it's COVID fearless completely. Now, the COVID showed us that we are crisis immune. It brought us to complete a new discovery of the new products and the services and the consumers' attention that we maybe didn't have a chance even to perform before. I would like to get your opinion on the growth in the times of a pandemic and what benefits that also brings to us as an industry, and also what's important to mention for the future investors that are looking right now at our industry in this particular time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I'll talk about in our case, like COVID-19 has magnified the importance of staying healthy, like as encouraging people to minimize behavior that could put themselves and others at risk. The pandemic really brought this real social change, including normalizing the conversation around health transparency. Like a few months ago, it was a taboo to ask someone about their health status, but now this discussion is really actively encouraged. So, COVID-19 made this people consider their role in spreading infections to others, which is a huge step forward both sexual wellness and society at large. And technology played a role with that, like UK government and others using apps to enable the track and trace initiative. So iPlaySafe is definitely going to want to harnessing that momentum of COVID testing by applying the conversation to STI testing as well, because never before people use so much home testing kits. They never before brought so much awareness in the convenience, safety, and reliability of home testing kits, and the awareness on sharing your health through an app.
I think it's also important to realize that nothing like a threat to global humanity makes you want to have the human desire to feel human again. And so if you really look at it, I know for our agency, we saw 24x in business, and that's largely because a lot of our brands saw such an increase, 5x, 8x. But, we've had this chat before, Heather, you and I, where we've gone, never before have we had the social permission. And let me make this clear. No one ever wants to be remiss about the loss that everyone to some degree has felt during COVID. And we are still in a pandemic, but it has, as to George's point, lifted a veil onto the concept of preventable healthcare. But along the way, it's like Mother Nature sent us all to our room and said, think about your healthcare. Think about what it means to be preventable healthcare, and take the time to explore something that ultimately is always a life chamber, that it's on our pleasure is a to-do list. Very seldomly is it part of our all-encompassing life chambers when we move through this world, which is why we see, the most Googled thing that is, how do I have an orgasm? Or how do I bring desire back into a relationship after 30 years? And so one is the environment and almost the social permission to explore this further. And then, of course, for the first time, brands like Please Me and iPlaySafe and other brands that are in the digital sphere, where we just, as we said, have accessibility now. We have the time and the access to be educated, to explore, to discover. I mean, may that never end.
Amen.
Yeah. I think it's also true that we're isolated, right? Away from people. And one way to connect is through that digital platform, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or something sexual, right? It's what are we doing as we're sitting in our bedrooms and our living rooms, and so people have more time to focus, and it's stressful. And sex is a huge stress reliever. Whether it's masturbation or whether it's intercourse with a partner, it's a way to reset our hormones and to calm down the cortisol and say, okay, it's all worth it to make it through another day. I just had an orgasm. In reality, and we need this at a time during so much uncertainty, so much stress. It brings, either people closer together or I think they said there's going to be the most babies, marriages, and divorces, this year of any other year, just extremes, right? I have to agree with both ladies that it's giving us the permission, it's giving us the innovation and the technology and the privacy also to do that, because we still want a little privacy as we're exploring our sexuality.
Exactly. And that also brought a lot of innovation into extension of the new futures of the products that we knew before, talking about the dating apps, offering right now the video connections, and of course the webcams extending their product by teledotonic technology and haptics and so on and so on. So the list of the innovations actually never ending right now. And I have to say, thanks to the situation we found each other in the 2020 pandemic times. I'm afraid we are going slowly to till the end, but I would love to still use the last 5 minutes of our talk to give a little bit of the best advice, I will call it this way, best advice to the sectors from the big umbrella of things from the sex tech industry. The 3 sectors, in your opinion, word on the investment at this very moment, today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If I can kick off on that one, only because we obviously have the agency and we have the fund and the lab, where if it was up to me to give advice, the top 3 would be first in FMCG, and by that I mean fast-moving consumable goods, whether it's CBD lubricant or otherwise for some men it's Viagra or anything for menopause. The second would be e-com and AI. So where you've got, and by all means they're all equal, right? This isn't by order. It's e-com and AI, so a place like Please Me, where it's really shifting radically that behavioral change, and you're going to see growth tenfold very, very fast. And then in the very important number 3 is where you see technology close that trifecta between sex and health and technology. So places where, like brands like iPlaySafe, are using AI, but also bringing in methodologies which sit traditionally in the medical sphere and turning and shift them into consumer brands. And I think if there's one word that we can say out of this industry, if it is consumer facing in the sexual health and technology landscape, you have a winner.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. I agree. And as far as the med tech goes too, I think anything and everything that makes it less embarrassing for a human being to go and deal with something sexual at their doctor's office or with another person, where if I can do it at home, if I can get the information, the technology, the testing, the tools, and not have to pull my pants down in front of a complete stranger, I'd rather do that. You know, I think that's a niche also inside sex tech, is giving people back the privacy in that area. Yeah.
And I think, like, still one of the biggest challenges on the industry is to overcome this stigma that is attached to the word itself, sex tech. I think somehow we need to educate investors in understanding that if they want to invest in sex tech, they don't necessarily need to be investing in VR porn or sex robots only. They somehow understand that sex tech is more familiar than they can imagine, that they've probably been using on their daily lives without even realizing. And because if they don't realize that, if you don't manage to break that stigma, we're losing investment, and we're losing also potential entrepreneurs that shy away from this sector because of the lack of funding. So everyone loses, like investors, entrepreneurs, and consumers, because a lot of new innovations that would come to market and improve our lives, our sexual health and wellness, they can't go to market because they don't have the funds to do so. But I guess in a positive note, like positive news is it is changing, and we can see those changes happening. We now see big retailers like Boots, for example, in the UK, with a whole sexual wellness section. We see Lubes getting awards for beauty categories, and so slowly but surely, I think we are demystifying the sex tech sector, and I think investors should really look out for this industry, because it really is a great opportunity to be on it and invest in it right now.
I think it used to be slowly but surely, but I wouldn't waste any time with this doubling of the marketplace in the next year. Investors, don't let it be too slow.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We all see the changes that happen in the sex tech industry and how this industry is growing, and that's why, once again, I hope to meet you all in Berlin during the second edition of SexTech.eu on 20th November to meet with all the global community of sex tech entrepreneurs, and to also learn more about the industry that maybe some of you of our audience today are not aware yet. I would like to thank you very, very much for joining this beautiful journey of the panel today. And I'm hoping that our emails will be shared somehow with the audience. I don't know. If not, we can later
on the app.
by the chat. So once again, thank you very, very much. And yes, I wish that everyone joining Wolf Summit today has gonna have a lovely day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.